Om Badram Karanebihi Shruniyama Devaha Badram Pashyema Akshabihi Rejatraha Sthirairangair Tushtuvam Sastanubihi Vyashema Devahitan Yadayuhu Swastinah Indro Vridrashravaha Swastinah Pusha Vishwavedaha Swastinah Tarksho Arishtanemihi Swastino Bruhaspatir Dadatu Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi यो अन्तः प्रविश्य मम वाच इमां प्रसुप्तां सञ्जीवयति अखिलशक्तिधरस्वधाम्नाम् अन्यांस्तहस्तचरणश्रवणत्वगादीन् प्राणान् नमो भगवते पुरुषाय तुभ्यं लसतु श्रीमदानन्दतीर्थेन्दुर्नो हृदम्बरे यद्वचश्चन्द्रिका स्वान्तसन्तापं विनिकृन्तति पदवाक्यप्रमाणज्ञान् प्रणम्य शिरसा गुरून् व्याकरिष्ये यथा भूतं विष्णुतत्त्वनिर्णयम्. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening to friends joining for the 16th session of Mundaka Upanishad Chintana. We've had a 2 weeks break, so I'm hoping that you've had some time to go back and review some of the slides and do a bit of revision and self-contemplation, because that's the only way in which we can make spiritual progress is Shravana, but then Manana and Dhyana. So those are the 3 prescribed procedures for getting the philosophical truths embedded in our consciousness. Yeah, so where were we? So we are in Atharvana Upanishad, which is part of the Atharva Veda. So the there's a whole lot of rishis, but we could take this opportunity to thank these rishis for having given us this divine knowledge. Atharva, Angira, Satyavaha, Angirasa, Shuanaka, and from Shuanaka, all the gurus from whom we've had our bhashyas. The chandas for this particular Upanishad, I mean, as you know, this is Atharva Veda. It has got both Gadya and Padya. So the Gadya aspects, the riks or the mantras will be in Anushtup Chandas primarily. The Chandas is in Anushtup primarily, as I said. Devata is important. The Devata for this Upanishad is Aksharanamaka Paramatma. Okay? So I just wanted to remind and reinforce that idea that the Devata for this Upanishad is Aksharanamaka Paramatma, because in this particular Khanda, we are going to be having a lot of discussion about this Akshara, because this Akshara and what he does comes quite a lot in this particular Khanda. That is Dvitiya Mundake Pratamaha Khandaha. So in this Khanda of the Dvitiya Mundaka, there is going to be a lot of discussion about Akshara. So, and again, as I told you before, we should never shy away from revising, but the philosophy of Akshara is actually quite profound. And understanding the deep etymological meanings of Akshara will actually help us understand what is it that Badarayana has discussed in Veda, in Brahma Sutra, in 2 different sections, taking not only Mundaka Upanishad, but also Brihadaranyaka Upanishad into consideration and gives references to who this Akshara is. Okay, so what I'll make an attempt today is to try and bring it all together. Okay, so the first verse was what, and this we did last week. How did it go? Tadetat satyam yata sudiptat pavakat vishvulingaha sahasrashaha prabhavante sarupaha tata aksharat vividaha somya bhavaha prajayante tatra cha eva apiyanti. So this was the verse that we did a fortnight ago. And very helpful to recap this. So what is this? Tadetat satyam yata sudiptat pavakat vishvulingaha sahasrashaha prabhavante sarupaha tata aksharat vividaha somya bhavaha prajayante tatra cha eva apiyanti. Beautiful verse. So from 2 weeks ago, we understood this particular verse gives the fundamental definition of who Brahman is. And as we know, Badarayana said, Atato Brahma Jignasa and Janmadyasya Yataha. Asya, this Jagat or the universe, Janmadi, creation, etc. Yataha, from whom? That Vastu is Brahman. Tat Brahma. Asya Janmadi Yataha Tat Brahma. So that is how you understand the second sutra of Veda Vyasa. And that is exactly what Angirasa is telling us. That this Akshara, when you are doing that fire sacrifice in the Kunda, you just don't just see this fire as Agni Narayana, but you need to contemplate what does this Agni Narayana actually do. And that fire itself gives us an example. The fire itself illustrates the view of who this Brahman is, that is Janmadhyasya Yataha. So the fundamental definition of Brahman is Akshara. And that creator is a creator of a real universe. Okay, so I just can't re-emphasize this, that this Akshara is a creator of a real universe. There are folks out there who think it's very cool to say that that this Brahman is a useless zero entity and his creation is an illusion. And some folks think that this is pretty cool and very scientific. Good luck to them. Yeah, but our view, Jayatirtha Muni, is very, very clear. Janmadhyasya yataha iti bhagavata sutrakarena jagat udayadi nimitta karanatvam parasya brahmano lakshanam abhihitam. Okay. If you say that there is this Brahman, but his creation is an illusion, you are actually accusing this Brahman as deceiving us. Yeah. So that is not the view of the realistic schools of Vedanta, which accept Brahman as an abode of infinite auspicious attributes, and how we as mundane jivas can appreciate the infinite auspicious attributes of Brahman by understanding that he is a creator of this humongous universe. Okay. The very fact that he has created this universe should give us an inference or an idea that this person who has created this universe must have infinite auspicious attributes. Yeah. Utpatti sthiti samhara niyatir avrittihi bandha moksha cha purushad yasmat harirekarad, eightfold dispensation of the universe, says the Skanda Purana. Taittiriya Upanishad condenses this to 4. Yato va imani bhutani jayante yena jatani jivanti yat prayanti abhishambisanti tad vijijnasasva tad brahmeti. So there are 4 aspects. Okay. And the same Mundaka Upanishad has previously said, this creatorship of the Brahman is very similar to a spider, because what is going on here, Angirasa is gone to Shuanaka's ashrama. And that is a very beautiful place with lots of trees and rivers and ponds and animals around it. And he's seeing a spider's web and a spider. And Angirasa is teaching Shuanaka, look at that spider web and a spider. That is what is the creatorship of Brahman. Yata urnanabhihi srujate gruhnate cha yata pruthuvyam oshadayaha sambhavanti tata sataha purushat keshalomani tata aksharat sambhavati iha vishnu. So note Akshara, it keeps coming in this Upanishad. That is why it is very important. So a detailed description of the sequence of creation, which is going to come in this particular section. And I've just put it there to remind ourselves. Angirasa actually then goes in this section discussing the details. Yes, the Vishvulingaha, the sparks come out, all the jivas come out. What is the sequence in which they come out? He gives all these descriptions in the subsequent mantras. Okay, so a detailed description of the sequence of creation described in the Upanishads, including in Atharvana Upanishad, is relevant only if the creation is real rather than an illusion or a mithya, as some folks want us to believe. Why waste time describe something that does not really exist? All the Upanishads give a detailed sequence and descriptions of how the Vedic cosmology comes about. If the whole damn thing was an illusion, there is no need for giving all these sequences. So that is a clear-cut explanation as to why considering this universe as mithya is a fundamental flaw of certain schools of Vedanta. Okay. So the next, of course, the question is how to contemplate the creatorship of Akshara in fire, right? So that is what we have done before. But before we go into that, I just want to introduce, again, we have done all this before, is about the concepts of creation. So here we have said that there is this real creation, and for a real creation, which is an effect, there has to be a cause, and the cause of this real effect is the Mula Prakriti. So there is always this primordial soup, and from the primordial soup comes this, this gross universe. So that is a view of the Vedanta. But there are also other concepts of creation that we should not forget, because there are various world philosophies that have different views of creation. But everyone accepts that this Paramatma or God, what is his definition? That he's a creator of the universe. Okay. Every world philosophy accepts that. Okay. But there are slight differences in view with regards to the concepts of creation. Okay. So there is one view called ex nihilo, that creation happens out of nothing. Then de novo, that this is a brand new creation. There was never a point where there was previous creation. There is only one creation. This is a brand new creation. And then after this is gone, nothing else. That's it. Okay. But Pringle Pattison, a Catholic philosopher, asks a very beautiful question. What induced the deity, which had obviously kept in its shell all the time, to suddenly take it, to come out and call a universe into being? Yeah, that is a profound statement of philosophy that our Vedantic rishis have resolved these issues that Pringle Pattison had asked in his book of Idea of God. So check that book out. It's a very beautiful piece of work. The other thing that we need to understand, and that is also a philosophical statement, is ex nihilo nihil fit. Nothing comes out of nothing. Okay, this is a basic idea. Nothing in this world comes out of nothing. For something to come out, for an effect, there always has to be a cause. Okay? There is nothing called effect itself. There is always a cause behind the effect. So think about these ideas. Now, why do I say that? So in the Vedantic schools of system, there are a few views, primarily three different views. God transforms himself into universe. So that's called Parinamavada. Okay? So that is one view that you want to think about, that God himself transforms himself into the gigantic universe. Okay? So there are pros and cons of this view. So one of the other schools of Vedanta will challenge this view by saying, how can a conscious entity convert itself into a jara? And if it happens, what portion of that conscious being gets converted into a jara? If that being has portions, then that means that that being has parts. But Brahman in all schools of Vedanta is partless. So those are all formidable arguments against the view as to how God can transform himself to the universe. So I'm just giving you the various key arguments, and I leave it to you to make the decision as to which kind of fits into your equation. Then, of course, there is this Vivartavada, which is an appearance superimposed on Brahman, which at least from Angiras's view, does not hold good. So I will reject that for this discussion. Then, of course, you have the doctrine of eternal creation through Para Adina Visesha Apti. That is, Rig Veda says, Data Yata Purvam Akalpayat, which means that there is this doctrine of eternal creation. There was never a point where creation did not happen. There is always this Srishti, Sthiti, Samhara, etc. that has been going on forever. So that is what is the view of the Rig Veda. And Srimad Bhagavatam also says the same thing. Yata idanim tadagre cha paschad api etad idrisham. Exactly echoing the view of the Rig Veda, that this Paramatma creates this universe exactly as how it was in the previous creation. And he will also be creating a similar universe in the future, which will be very similar to the present universe. Okay? So this sequence continues. So how do we see that in Angirasa's example? Tadetat satyam yata sudiptat pavakat vishvulingaha sahasrashaha prabhavante sarupaha tata aksharat vividaha somya bhavaha prajayante tatra cha eva apiyanti. This is a revision slide. So we understood in this example, because this our Shuanaka is a Mahashalaha. He does huge yajnas. So he is taking that kunda. Look, you are doing this kunda. Here is the example. The flame is the Paramatma. Okay, that is Brahman. Whereas the Vishvulingas, or the sparks that are coming out, are the jivas that are emanating from this kunda. Okay, so what are the origins of flame? Flame is made of, when you look at physics, carbon dioxide, water, vapor, oxygen, and nitrogen in a very high heat state called the plasma. Whereas what are the sparks? Sparks are tiny pieces of material that are hot enough to produce visible light. With fire, it is tiny particle of burning wood chips or ahutis that we have done in the kunda. Okay. The flame does not transform itself into sparks. So that is a key point there. When you look at how what is the origin of sparks in this kunda, they come from wood chips. They do not come from the flame. Okay, this is a point to be noted, because certain schools of Vedanta have looked at it differently. Okay. So what is the relationship between a flame or spark? Spark is not a transformation of the flame. Parinama doesn't appear to be sit here. Spark is not a superimposition of flame. Therefore, Vivarta doesn't seem to sit in this example. Flame and spark are different, although they have some resemblance. So that I think we can all agree. They have some resemblance, but they have different origins. They're different. Right? So this is what Angirasa is trying to illustrate in this example, that these sparks, they are there, they emanate out when the fire is burning very well. Yata lelayatehi archihi, previous verses. So when the fire is burning very well, these sparks are coming out. And eventually what happens to the sparks? Tatra cha eva apiyanti. They again go back to the kunda. They fall down in the kunda, finished. Okay. They come out from the kunda, they go back to the kunda. So that is all is going on here. Okay, so from whom is it happening? Tata Akshara. So when you now take this flame as Akshara or Brahman, and now think about the creatorship of Brahman, it's a beautiful, beautiful example. So he says, just as how the sparks come out of the kunda, and then there is this flame, similarly, Aksharat, Vividaha, Somya Bhavaha, Prajayante, Tatra cha eva apiyanti. Similarly, from Akshara, Vividaha, various kinds of natures, Bhavaha, Prajayante, they come out. Yatova imani bhutani jayante. So that is what Taittiriya Upanishad also says, is from this Brahman come out these jivas. Okay. Where are they in Pralaya? They are in the womb of Paramatma. And in every cycles, these jivas that are there in the womb of the Paramatma, they come out, including Chaturmukha Brahma. They all come out and they play out their samsara and find their destination, which is what our spider example is. And who are the jivas here? If the spider web is the material world, the jivas are these insects that have got stuck in this web and they are suffering. Okay, so that again is a beautiful example of why and how we are in samsara. And again, what happens at the end of this creation? What happens? Yato va imani bhutani jayante, yena jatani de jivanti, yat prayanti. So they then dissolve, disappear, they're destroyed. What is the destruction of that? They lose their gross body and again go back into the womb of Paramatma at the end of this creation, and they hang out there in Pralaya for billions of years before they come out in another creation. Okay. So the example is very clear, the Samanvaya between the Taittiriya Upanishad and this example is very clear. Okay. So now we are going to make, having had a brief recap of what's going on in this particular section of the Upanishads, now we are going to go into some new verse. Okay. So here, a person of logical predisposition will ask, hang on, don't try to kid me with this example. Flame is material and inert. It is not a conscious entity. Flame does not know that sparks are emanating. Okay. So this whole example of a flame and a spark that has been given is purely a jada, right? Flame is there. Flame does not know the sparks are coming, that the sparks will go back to it and so on. So it's a very material thing. Okay. So is God material? Absolutely not. We know that. So the key point there is, in what perspective should this metaphor of fire be contemplated? Okay. That's important. And that is what Angirasa talks to us in the next verse. So before I go on to the next slide, I just wanted to open up for a brief discussion within the group as to what should be the perspective about this metaphor that we need to contemplate in this verse. We have done a lot of sessions on fire and why fire is the supreme pratika or symbol of Brahman on earth. So who wants to take this up for 15-20 seconds?
Can I try?
Yeah, go for it.
Fire has to be contemplated as Vishnu, I mean Brahman or Akshara, who is having the fire, what is that? I'm not getting it.
Thank you. No, Rishilaji. Thank you very much for that.
Yeah,
So, fire has to be contemplated as Akshara. So I think the question is, but the flame that we are talking about is a Jada, but Akshara is not a Jada, it's a conscious entity. So in what perspective of fire that we should be thinking about? So let's move on. So this is the new verse. So after having given this example, Yata sudiptat pavakad vishvalingaha sahasrashaha prabhavante sarupaha, Angirasa gives a small little clue here. But please don't think that fire is Akshara. Okay? The fire is a material jada. Don't think that fire as Akshara. Okay? When you look at the fire, it should give you some ideas about Brahman. That is the whole point here. It just gives us an idea about Brahman. And also we need to understand that behind this Jada called the material fire, there is the Agni Devata who is the Abhimani of that. Then we should remember inside that Agni Devata is the Antaryamin who is called as Agni Narayana. So that Agni Narayana is non-material. Yeah, Agni Devata, of course, has got a material body. It may be subtler than ours, but nevertheless, this Agni Devata is in the material world and he is in samsara. But the Antaryamin inside that Agni Devata is called Agni Narayana, who is wholly non-material. Right? That is what we need to be contemplating. So again, Angirasa is giving us, and we'll come up in the later sections as to how worshipping this wooden or metallic idols and so on should be viewed very, very carefully in the Vedantic system. Because here, Angirasa is giving a very, very clear definition as to how you need to view the symbolism of Brahman worship. Divyo hi amurtaha purushaha sa bahyavi antaro hi ajaha aprano hi amanaha shubro hi aksharat paratah paraha. This is a very, very important verse of Mundaka Upanishad, well worth memorizing and thinking about this very deeply, because that gives a fundamental definition of who is Brahman of the Vedantic philosophy, and how should what is that worship of Brahman, and how idol worship should be shunned and should not be done, and how Angirasa has given a good way of how the system works in the Vedantic system. Okay. And this has been, of course, many of us have forgotten this, and we have become very, when we go to temples, we just look at something and then put some hundis, do some stuff and come back. Yeah. But Angirasa is very, very clear, and hopefully I'll be able to impress upon what is it that Angirasa is teaching Shuanaka about who this Akshara or Brahman is. He first says he is Divyaha. Yes, you have looked at Agni. Yeah, Agni, but view the example of Agni is just to give you an illustration of something that is Divyaha. Okay. Then he says, Divyo hi Amurtaha. That fire is Amurtaha. He is Purushaha. He is Sabahya Abhi Antaraha. He Ajaha. He is Apranaha. He is Amanaha. He is Shubraha. He is Aksharat Paratah Paraha. So 9 adjectives are given here about Akshara. Okay, very important, beautiful definitions of who this Brahman or the creator or the supreme god of the Vedantic system or the Vedic system is. Okay. Divyaha hi amurtaha purushaha sabahya bi antaraha hi ajaha aprano amano shubro aksharat paratah paraha. 9 adjectives are given for Akshara or Brahman. Okay. 9 gunas are being discussed here. So I just can't understand how some folks can see nirgunatva in that particular verse. Yeah. There is no nirgunatva for Akshara. He is full of auspicious attributes, but here Angirasa is given us 9 attributes to contemplate. Okay. So what are those 9 attributes? Over the next 40 minutes, hopefully I'll go through these 9 attributes before we close today's session. So the first thing he said is Divyaha. So in the previous verse, he spoke about Agni, right? He spoke about the fire. When you look at fire, think about Agni Narayana. How do you think about that Agni Narayana? The fire is Prakasha Swarupaha. This fire is a bright entity, isn't it, in the material world? It is full of light and it is bright. So when you look at something that is full of light and bright, think about Vishnu, who is Jnananandamaya. His light and his brightness he is Jnana and Anandamaya. So when you look at fire, you think about that Prakasha Swarupaha. Okay, so this is why, again, this is an important point. This is why in the Vedic system, fire is always the highest form of worship of Brahman. Okay. Why? We got 5 Panchabhutas, right? Akasha, Vayu, Tejas, Aap and Prithvi. Among the 5, it is only the Tejas or the fire which is Prakasha Swarupaha. Aap is not Prakasha Swarupaha. Prithvi, which is stone, metal and wood, they are not Prakasha Swarupaha. It is only fire which is Prakasha Swarupaha. That it is light, it is bright. Yeah. It removes darkness. All those ideas. And of course, we know fire is pure. And whatever you throw at it, it eats it, lights. So we've discussed all these ideas as to why fire is the supreme form of worship. So here Angirasa actually has told us that this Agni Narayana is Divyaha. He is Prakasha Swarupaha, like fire. Okay? In that perspective, you contemplate on the fire as though with Agni Narayana in it. Fire is not Agni Narayana. Inside that fire is the Agni Narayana. Okay? So Deva, look at the word Deva. The English word divine comes from Deva. Okay, divine means what? Light. Light means what? Jnana. Okay? So the Western view of divine actually comes from the Vedic Sanskrit words of Deva. Deva becomes divine. Deva, besides being Prakasha Swarupaha, has so many other etymologies. So we can think about all this. Divu Kridayam, Divu Vijayate, Divu Stuti, Divu Kanti, Divu Gati, Divu Samarthya. There are at least 6 different ways of contemplating Divyaha. But in this Prakarana, it is Prakasha Swarupaha. We contemplate on fire. So in your puja room, you may have a light, you may have a deepa. And when you have a deepa and you look at that fire that comes out from the deepa, you think about the fire as Agni Narayana. Why? Because he is Prakasha Swarupaha. What kind of Prakasha Swarupaha? Jnananandamaya. Okay? So that is why in all our puja rooms, we have this lamp. Because lamp is the highest form of worship of Paramatma. Over the last several hundred years, we might have things that have emanated made of wood and stone and metal and so on. But that is for convenience. But primarily in the Vedic system, fire is the primary form of worship, period. Nobody can have an argument on that, at least from the Upanishad philosophy. This Divyaha is also called Deva. Deva comes from Divyaha. Eko Devaha. Shvetashvatara Upanishad. And look at our Gita 15:12. Who wants to take up Gita 15:12? Let's get one of us to recite that. Pragnesh, go for it.
Thank you. Yadaditya gatam tejo jagadvasaya chaikilam yatchandramasi yachagno tattejo vidimavakam.
Beautiful. Look at the verses. Very clear. 15:12. Yachagno tattejo viddimamakam. The Agni, the fire. I give it the light. The fire is the fire is Prakasha Swarupa, not because it has got the property. It is because Agni Devata is there. He's been given the portfolio of ensuring that the fire has light. And I, inside the Agni Devata, an independent being, ensures that the Agni Devata performs his function of giving Prakasha Swarupaha for Agni. Yachagno tat tejo viddi mamakam. Yeah. So again in 10:15 he says, Arjuna is saying, Deva Deva, Jagatpate. You are the Devas, you are the Devasya Deva. Okay, so Deva primarily means Paramatma, Krishna, Vishnu. Yeah, because he is Divyaha, he is Jnananandamaha. So now the question is, so I hope you understand where Angirasa's philosophy and logic is going ahead. And from that, we need to understand how to adapt all this in our modern forms of worship. Sometimes we get very sentimental when we go to these temples and look at all these vigrahas. But our rishis are very careful in saying how that contemplation needs to happen. The reason being, this fire here, this fire has got a form. Let us not kid ourselves. This fire has got a form, right? It's got this flame. The flame has got a particular shape. It's got certain limitations. It's got some boundaries and so on. Yes, it is Prakasha Swarupaha, but it has got a form and it has got some limitations around it. Yeah, you can see the borders of the flame. Okay, so then the big question arises is, like fire, does he have material form? No. Why do I say that? Okay. He immediately says, Amurtaha. He puts the word he. Divyo, he Amurtaha. He there means this is authentic. This has been established in the Vedas. It has been established in the Shastras that he is Amurtaha. Okay. So what is Amurtaha? This is it's a very interesting Sanskrit word. So let's think about Amurtaha. So first let's go back to Panchabhuta, right? All that we have at this point of time is we use some symbolism, some symbols to do stuff in our prayers, in our puja room or elsewhere. So what are the Panchabhutas? Akasha and Vayu. Akasha and Vayu are formless. We can't see a shape for Akasha and Vayu. whereas Tejas, Aap and Prithvi have got form. Okay. So in a very superficial sense, Tejas, Aap and Prithvi are called Murtas. Okay. Akasha and Vayu are called Amurta. Okay. Amurta is that which does not have a shape or a form, whereas Murta is that which has a form. Okay. So among the Tejas, Aap and Prithvi, all three of them have a form, but our Vedic philosophers have told us that Tejas is the superior most form of Pratika or symbolism of Brahman because he is Prakasha Swarupaha. But Angirasa then says, but mate, don't make that mistake of taking it for granted that this Paramatma has got a form like the fire. He is formless. Okay, so we'll come to that idea that what is the philosophy there when somebody says God is formless. Okay, yes, in Vedic philosophy, God is formless. Okay, that is basic. But in what perspective he is formless is what is the question here. Okay, so to qualify that, Angirasa says he amurtaha. Amurtaha means what? A plus murtaha. Murta means what? That which is material and has a material shape and form. Okay, that is one view there of Murta means that which has a material form. Okay, it could be a Vigraha that you bought from a shop somewhere. Yeah, that has a material form made of metal. But our philosophy is it is not that made. It is Amurtaha. It has no material form. So that is one idea of Amurtaha. The second idea of Amurtaha, as I told you, is Murtaha means it has a form. So when you say something has a form, then it has boundaries. It has got limitations, right? Yeah, that is a very important idea. That when something has a form, it means that it has some limitations around it. Whereas our Angirasa says this Paramatma is Amurtaha. He is unlimited. Anything that has a form is limited, whereas this guy is unlimited. Okay, so when you look at this, it seems a little, confusing. But he takes various avatara forms as described in the scriptures. How can an unlimited assume limited forms? Folks may ask us this question. Yeah. So the first thing we understand is he's got a non-material form. And the other thing that we understand is primarily he is unlimited. That is why he is called Brahman. Brihantohi asmin gunaha. He is all pervasive in time, space, and gunas. That is why he is called Brahman. So he is unlimited. But then how do you reconcile these avatara forms? How can unlimited assume limited forms? So this is one of the arguments of, let's say, Dayananda Saraswati. So using an example of the sky, he said, sky is formless. It is all pervasive. It doesn't have a form. Just like the sky, Brahman is also unlimited, so he cannot have a form. So that is the logic of the Dayananda Saraswati. Okay. So anybody wants to take this question, I put a question mark there. How can we reconcile these views of something that is unlimited, but in avatars can have a limited form? So who wants to take that up? What is the answer for that?
Out of compassion, maybe he takes the form. And I was also just thinking, like Koti Surya Samaprabha, he says. So the brightness has got no form, right? The energy which is radiated, that is limitless. Something like that.
Okay, thank you, Pratibhaji. Neeta Sushil?
Yes, so the Avatar Rupas are no different to the original form. So they also do not have any material form, but because of his Achintya Ishwarya Shakti, he can make it appear like he has a human form so that us mortals can actually see something there.
Beautiful answer, Shushilji. So that Achintya Adbhuta Shakti is important there. Very well put. So the answer to Dayanand Saraswati there should be, okay, mate, we agree that like Akasha is unlimited, but Akasha is Jada. Is he omnipotent? Akasha is a Jada. It's not omnipotent. Whereas our Paramatma, our Brahman is omnipotent. He's capable of doing anything. Kartum, akartum, anyata kartum samartaha. Yeah. So when you know that he is omnipotent, and as Sushruji very beautifully mentioned, through his Achintya Adbhuta Shakti, which is what omnipotency is, that he is able to take these forms for our benefit. So Pratibhaji is absolutely right. It is out of mercy for us. It is his grace that he tries to get this limited form through his Achintya Shakti so that we limited beings can actually contemplate on that Paramatma. So these are important ideas of Hi Amurtaha. Divyo Hi Amurtaha. Do Avatara Rupas have material forms? As Sushruti said, absolutely not. Okay. Anybody who thinks that Avatara Rupas are different from Mula Rupas and that Avatara Rupas have a material form of Paramatma, Yama in Katha Upanishad, we have done this for Mrutyosa Mrutyum Gacchati ya iha naneva pashyati. Very, very clear censuring by Yama. Let's not forget it. Na iha nanasti kinchada. But he who thinks that there is a difference, what is na iha nanasti kinchana means? There is no internal difference in Paramatma. He is the same. He is the same in all the Avatara Rupas, in the Mula Rupas, and even inside us as Antaryamin, there are no difference. But once somebody thinks that he is different, Mrutyosa Mrutyum, he goes to the deepest of the hells. Yama's view. Yama is the person who is in charge of all this, and he says, any fellow who thinks like this, Mrutyosa Mrutyum Gacchati ya iha naneva pashyati. So some folks, this is a popular thing, when I go to these various, mantans that happen everywhere, they all talk about this, rather superficial statements that Rama is Maryada Purushottama, Krishna is Purna Purushottama. I sometimes want to stand up and say, please can you stop saying that? Because there is absolutely no difference between Rama and Krishna. He is absolutely non-different. Okay. It is us with our ignorance that we view it like that, but there is no difference. Okay. Manasaiva idam aptavyam na iha nanasti kinchana. So we need to watch all this very, very carefully, because if we are going to take that the Vedas are the supreme source of authority, and that Mundaka Upanishad is part of the Atharva Veda, which is part of the Veda, then we need to take what Angirasa has seen. Yeah, Angirasa is not said, right? Let us not forget that Angirasa through intuition, he has grasped these verses, yeah, and he's given it to us. Okay. So, na pratike nahi saha. And again, I'm not tired of saying this, reminding us again and again. Okay. Sutra in Veda Vyasa, I said this Paramatma is arupava devahi tat pradhanatvad. Arupa, Amurtaha, Arupaha. Same meaning. Arupa, Arupavad, Eva, stresses, he, Shastra Prasiddha. Tat Pradhanat, why? The Tat Namaka Paramatma is Pradhanatva, he is beyond material world. He is non-material. So, Napratike nahi saha. Temptation to identify pratikas or symbols of worship with supreme should be most carefully and diligently avoided, says Veda Vyasa, who is our father. Okay, Deval.
Sorry, so if we work on the principle that he's omnipotent, so he can take forms, I don't understand why it is a mercy upon us as jivas that he should take a form. Why can't we just pray to him as formless? So
You can do that. So there are three categories of souls, okay? Manishyottamas, Rishis, and Devatas. So there are various categories of souls. Yeah. So for Manishyottamas, the Vedic prescription is fire is the highest symbol of Paramatma. For Rishis, it is the Surya who is the highest form of Paramatma. Whereas the Devatas can worship him as an all-pervasive being. Okay, so the Vedas do allow that. It depends on the capacity of individual souls. Are you a Manishottama? Are you a Rishi? Or you are a Devata? Okay? And each one has got a capacity to contemplate based on their own inherent capacities. Yeah. So Devalji, if we are Devatas, then maybe we will be able to contemplate on Paramatma as the Brahman who is all pervasive. But I don't think we as Jivas have got that capacity. We are very limited beings. So for us, we need a limited way of worshipping, and that is how the avatara forms and the rupas come about. So I hope that answers your question. So moving on. The next one he says, yes, he is Divyohi Amurtaha, then he is Purushaha. And this Purushaha is a very popular, is a very common verse for us. So anybody wants to give us a quick recap of what is Purusha of the Veda? What does it actually mean? Purushaha. What does it mean? Anybody wants to share their thoughts with us, please? No worries. So Purusha is a very common and a very important verse of Vedantic philosophy. Prashna Upanishad. Param Purusham Abhidyayati Sa Tejasi Surye Sampannaha Yo Asa Vasau Purushaha So Ahamasmi. We have done it in Isha Upanishad. Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Atmanyeva idamagra asid purushavidaha purushoha vai narayanaha om ata purushoha vai narayano akamayata praja srujayeti anunarayana. And in Katha Upanishad, of course, Indriyebhyah parahi artaha param manasa. So here, Indriyebhyah parahi arta artebhyashta param manaha manasastu para buddhir atma mahan paraha mahataha param avyaktam avyaktat purushaha paraha purushanna param kinchit sakashta saparagati. Then, of course, our chapter 15 Gita talks about Purushottama Yoga. So Purusha again, so when he says he is Divyaha, he is Prakasha Swarupaha, he doesn't have any material form, but he is celebrated in the Vedas as Purushaha, he who is pervaded into everything. Yeah. Purvameva Aham, he who exists before creation. Pura Asa, he who is inside the Puras. What are the Puras? Puras are the bodies, Puras are the Jivas, Puras are the Brahmanda. And he also exists outside the Brahmanda as Purvameva Aham. Sahapuru, he is full of infinite auspicious attributes. He Purushati, he destroys. Purusanoti, he gives all the things that we want. Purusha Vidatvat, Purushaha Purna Shadgunatvat. Celebrated as Bhagavan in Vishnu Purana and in Bhagavatam. The six, Bhaga means six, group of six. And the highest, Bhagavan, he who has the highest levels of the group of six. Aishwaryasya Samagrasya, Viryasya Yashasaha, Shriyaha, Jnana Vairagyashchaiva Sannam Bhaga iti Gana. Okay, so all those things you need to get. So I don't want to spend too much time on Purusha because we are all familiar with Purusha, but just to say that he is non-material, Purishete iti Purushaha, he is inside. Is that all to it? No. Sabahyabi antaraha. Okay, this is an interesting word. Bahya means outside, antaraha means inside. So this guy is Prakasha Swarupaha, he is non-material, he is inside. So that is again important when we do this worship of symbolism. A symbolic worship in fire or in vigrahas made of metal or wood or stone. He is Purushaha, he is inside it. He is not that stone, metal or wood. Okay, he is inside it. That is Purishete. But it is not just that, he is also outside. Okay, so Saha Bahya Abhi Antaraha. Now I just want to remind this verse from Isha Upanishad, right? We have done this Isha Upanishad for 6 months. Very first verse. Isha Vasyam Idang Sarvam Yatkincha Jagatyam Jagat Tena Tyaktena Punjitaha Magradaha Kasya Svidhanam. First verse. Isha Vasyam Idang Sarvam. This is Isha. Isha means this omnipotent controller who is Prakasha Swarupaha, who is formless, who is inside everything. He is also Vasyaha. Isha Vasyaha. So what does that Vasya means? Vasya means covered. But you can also split Isha Vasya into Isha Vasya, Isha Avasya. Okay, so when you look at Isha Vasya, he covers the universe. Universe is there, he is covering the universe, meaning that he is outside the universe. Isha Avasya means it is an abode or a house for Brahman, which means that he has pervaded that universe. Okay, so when you say Isha Avasya, it immediately gives you these ideas of Bahyabi Antaraha. That is what Narayana Sukta says, isn't it? Antar Bahishta Tat Sarvam Vyapya Narayana Stitaha. That is, Narayana is both inside and outside. That is why he is called Narayana. So one of the etymologies of Narayana itself is very interesting. Nara Samudaya Ayana. That is one etymology of Narayana. And of course, we have done various etymologies of Narayana. Narayana is not a noun, okay? It gives us an idea of who this person is. Nara Samudaya is you and me, okay? He is an Ayana. In the sense, in these two senses, he is outside them. So all the Naras are inside him and he is inside the Naras. So that is why he is called Nara Samudaya Ayana Narayana, which is what Antarbahishta Tatsarvam Vyapya Narayana Stitaha is, which is what Isha Vasyam Idang Sarvam is what Sabhahyabi Antaraha. Okay? And immediately he says, He Ajaha. He is inside and outside of everything. And he, look at that word, he comes again and again. He means stressing. This is Shastra. This is the truth of the Vedas. This is the truth of the Shastras. This is Shastras has established this truth that this guy is Ajaha. Yeah, we are all born in one form or the other, and I'll come to that in a minute. But this guy is called Ajaha. This Narayana or Vishnu is primarily called Ajaha. What is Ajaha? A plus Ja. Ja means what? Jayante, to be born. Jayate, Jayante, it's something to be born. Whereas this guy is unborn. Okay? So, in fact, Vishwakarma Sukta of Rig Veda gives a beautiful definition there. Ajasya nabhav avadyekam arpitam asmin vishwani bhuvanani tastuhu. Ajasya, from this unborn comes all the born existence. So that is a beautiful example. And in fact, Gita 2:20, anybody wants to take up Gita 2:20, please? That gives us similar ideas. Who wants to do Gita 2:20?
Yeah, I can do it.
Oh, okay, Neetaji, go for it.
न जायते म्रियते वा कदाचित् नायं भूत्वा भविता वा न भूयः अजो नित्यः शाश्वतोऽयं पुराणः न हन्यते हन्यमाने शरीरे.
Beautiful. So the Katha Upanishad also says the same thing. Thank you, Neetaji. Najayate mriyate va vipaschit na ayam kutaschit babuva kashchit ajo nityaha shashvato ayam purano na hanyate hanyamane sharire. So we have done these verses, 220 and 1 to 18 of Katha Upanishad are very similar. Look at na jayate, ajaha, a, na, jayate, ja, na jayate. So if you take Acharya's Gita Bhashya and Gita Tatparya, there are different interpretations of this verse, whereas the first two lines can mean Najayate is Paramatma, Ajaha is this Jiva is also unborn, but this guy takes material bodies and he is born again and again under the controllership of Paramatma. Okay, so those are all the similar ideas. Here in Katha Upanishad, it talks about various levels of this Jiva in samsara, in moksha, and this Paramatma and so on. So go back to those verses and check it out. Yeah, so Ajasya and Najayate, they mean the same thing, but the fundamental truth is this guy is unborn. Yeah, we are born in one form or the other. So it's a very quick quiz. So who is going to tell us what is birth for jivas? Although in 2:12 we are told that Krishna said that we are unborn. In what form are we born? So Sheilaji.
Acquiring a body.
Beautiful. Thank you very much, Sheilaji. So acquiring a body is our birth. Acquiring a material body, yeah, is our birth. But primarily we are unborn. Yeah, thanks, Sheilaji. So Ajaha. Think about that. Ajaha. Now, how much? I got 12 minutes to do this. This is a very important verse. And in the previous line, he said, Divyo hi amurtaha purushaha bahya bi antaro hi ajaha. Then he says, but this fellow is apranaha. Yeah, think about this. This is a very cryptic word that Angirasa is saying this Paramatma is apranaha. So what does that apranaha mean? So in a very in one sense, I won't say superficial, there are various levels of understanding this apranaha. So one view is, as Sheilaji very rightly pointed out, birth for us means acquiring body, right? And that body means what? 5 koshas. Okay, so what are the 5 koshas? Annamaya kosha, Pranamaya kosha, Manonmaya kosha, Vijnanamaya kosha, and Anandamaya kosha. How do you link these 5 layers of the material body with the Panchabhutas? I've done this for you. Aap and Prithvi forms the Annamaya kosha. Okay, the Sukshma Sharira is Vayu, Tejas, Akasha, Manas, Buddhi, Ahankara. They form the Sukshma Sharira. Whereas the Linga Sharira is Chitta and Chetana. That is Vijnanamaya kosha and Anandamaya kosha. Whereas the Sukshma Sharira is Pranamaya kosha, Manonmaya kosha. Stula Sharira is Annamaya kosha. All these 5 are material. Okay. So there you go. There is a very easy answer here. When Angirasa says he's apranaha, it essentially means he does not have pranamaya kosha, which means that like you and me, he doesn't have these material sheets. So that is one view. Okay. So, but the other view, this becomes very important and interesting. Yeah. So look at this Purusha Shukta. We have done Purusha Shukta before, right? Yeah, what is this? Pranad Vayu Rajayata. So from this prana of the Paramatma, Vayu comes out, says the Purusha Shukta. But then if you go to Nasadiya Sukta of Rigveda, and again we have done in the creation section, this is one of my most favorite Sukta of Rigveda. Hopefully at some point we will do this. Talks about the creation. It's a creation hymn. Yeah. Grossly misinterpreted, but our acharyas have given a right perspective of how to look at this. In this, it says, Anidavatam swadayatadekam tasmaddan anyana parakinchanasa. Anidavatam. There was this person before creation, na sadasin, no sadasit, tadanim, nasid, rajo, no vyoma aparoyate, kim avariha kuhakasya sharaman imbak gahanam gabiram, na mrityurasid, apraketam, na tarhi, na ratraya, ahna, asit praketaha, anidavatam. Beautiful description of pre-creation stage. What has happened before creation? And on the Rishi in his contemplation has seen that this Paramatma is there, Anidavatam, breathing windlessly. Okay, it's a beautiful verse. Anidavatam. He is breathing, but windlessly. Okay. So those are all the ideas of Apranaha. Okay. And then look at our Kena Upanishad. It talks about, as you know, it's a discourse between Chaturmukha and Rudra. And Rudra is asking Chaturmukha, I want to know about my grandfather. Rudra is basically grandson of Narayana, yeah, in the Vedic philosophy. Yeah. And he's saying, I want to know about my grandfather. Kena, how is my mind working? Kena shitam patati preshitam manaha, kena pranaha pratama praiti yuktaha, kena shitam vacham imam vadanti, and chakshu shrotram kavudevo yunakti. He's asking Chaturmukha, and Chaturmukha immediately says, my dear son, because after all, Rudra comes from the eyebrow of Chaturmukha Brahma in Vedic philosophy. And he says, Shrotrasya Shrotram, Manasa Mano Yad Vachaha Vacham Savu Pranasya Prana. So that is the Paramatma who is controlling everything. So when I say Apranaha, if you put these verses of the Vedas into consideration, then you get two ideas. One is he doesn't have any material covering. So he is called Apranaha. And the other one is these Prana Tattvas don't control him. If anything, he controls the Prana Tattva. Pranaha. Yeah. Aha iti Brahman. Aha iti Brahma, who controls this Prana Tattva. Okay. And he is breathing windlessly, means he is an independent being. So all those ideas should come to our mind when we think about Apranaha. He controls all the pranas. He controls the Mukhya Prana. And he doesn't have any Pranamaya kosha. The next one is he Amanaha. Aprano he Amanaha. Look at this word Amanaha. Again, it gives you several ideas. One idea is he doesn't have Manonmaya kosha. So there's a typo here. This should be Manonmaya kosha. Like you and me or Rudra, he doesn't have Manonmaya. Yato vacho nivartante aprapya manasasaha. This guy cannot be known through the material mind. You can know him as per your capacity. You may not be able to grasp him completely. That is the meaning there. Yeah? And you may not be able to know him fully through your material mind. You need your Swarupa Indriya to actually know him fully beyond Aparoksha Jnana in the Moksha Sthiti. Your material mind is only material. It's got its limitation. And he is Amanaha. He doesn't have Manonmaya kosha. Shrotrasya Shrotram Manasa Mano. He is the controller of Manas. Chaturmukha says he is the controller of you, Rudra. Yeah. That is why he is called Amanaha. Okay. So he is not only Divyaha, he Amurtaha, Purushaha, Sabahya, Bi Antaro, he Ajaha, Aprano, he Amanaha, he is Shubhraha. Okay. What is Shubhra? Shubhra has various meanings. Okay. Shubhra. Shubhena Ramate. He is pure bliss. That is what Shubhra basically means. Yeah. And of course, Isha Upanishad and Katha Upanishad also talk about this in a slightly different called Shukram. Okay. Saparyagad. Shukram. Yeah, akayam, avranam. Look at this, very similar. There's always a negative aspect that is discussed about Brahman, and then a positive aspect comes about. Yeah. So that is a consistent theme of the Upanishad. So here, for example, Shubram. What is Shubram? Shubram is Shukram is a synonymous with Shubram, which is synonymous with Shuklam, which is pure or white. Yeah. So Varaha Puramana says Shukram tat shokarahityat. Shukra means shokarahita, free from sorrow. He is free from sorrow and he is also infinitely purely blissful. Yo vai bhuma tat sukham na alpe sukhamasti. Chandogya Upanishad. Okay. Why does Brahman not have sorrow? Because he is akayam. Okay, so here is a quick quiz. What does akayam mean? It's a beautiful verse of Isha we have done before. That he is without sorrow because he is akayam, says, says Isha Upanishad. So what does akayam mean? What is kaya? I'll give a clue.
Without material body.
Sorry, Sheila-ji.
Without material body mind complex.
Akayam. Okay, excellent. Harish?
Yeah, I was saying the same thing.
Excellent. So what material body? So you got the gross, you got sukshma, you got linga sharira. Which one is technically called kayam?
I think all of them.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a
Anybody
linga
else?
sharira, not having a linga sharira.
Devalji, what did you say? Linga sharira. Thank you. Anybody else? Nita Shishrut?
Linga Sharira.
Linga sharira. Correct. Yeah. So kayam technically means linga sharira. Akayam means no linga sharira. Okay. So this fellow does not have material covering, so he does not have any suffering. So technically kayam means linga sharira. Okay, so that is why akaya means he doesn't have linga sharira, because jivas eternally forever have always had linga sharira. There never was a point where they did not have linga sharira. But once they make their spiritual journey, that single sharira at some point when they go through Viraja Nadi can be shed. Okay, so it is anadi, but it is not nitya. At some point it can be removed. Okay, so that is kayam. So all those ideas about pure bliss, shubra, shukra, shuklam, shukram, they all give the same idea that this guy is pure bliss. Anandam Brahmano Vidyan, Taittiriya Upanishad. Okay. So think about all those ideas about Shubhraha. And then finally today, I wanted to finish this overarching view of Akshara. Who is this Akshara? But I think we are running out of time. So to do justice to who this Akshara is. So here then our Angirasa closes this particular verse. Divyo hi amurtaha purushaha sabahya bi antarahi ajaha aprano hi amanaha shubro hi aksharat parataha paraha. So far he has used akshara 3 times before. And now he qualifies when so Angirasa is saying to Shuanaka, when I say akshara, I primarily mean aksharat parataha paraha. Okay. So who this aksharat parataha paraha needs a good 25 minutes to 35 minutes discussion, because we have to bring in Gita, we have to bring in other Upanishads, we have to bring in Vishnu Sahasranama, we have to bring in Brahma Sutras, and then try and understand an overarching view of who this Akshara is. This Akshara is not just an alphabet, because I've seen some transliterations which say Akshara means alphabet. That what can I say? Good luck to them. But Akshara of philosophy is a profound statement from an Angirasa's perspective, where he says, this Brahman, whom I am celebrating and I am teaching to you, is actually Aksharat Parataha Paraha. So next week, we will carry on with this discussion and think about who this Aksharat Parataha Paraha. And then once we have done that, how does this Aksharat Parataha Paraha create? Okay, this is beautiful, beautiful verse. Yetasmat jayate prano manaha sarva yandriyani cha kam vayur jyoti rapaha prithvi vishwasya dharini. And in this is a very important verse of Badarayana, has given so much importance to verse to tell us what is the sequence of creation. Okay. Although this fellow is apranaha, although this fellow is amanaha, immediately next verse he says, Yetasmat jayate prano manaha. From him comes the prana tattva. From him comes the manas tattva. Sarva indriyanicha. And also kam vayur jyoti rapaha prithvi vishwasya dharini. Okay, so these are all very rational sequence of creation. So again, as I said, Let us not make that mistake of assuming this creation is an illusion or a mithya. Angirasa is very clear. He's giving us a sequence as to how that creation is happening and doing that contemplation of all the Tattvabhimani devatas who are coming out before that Brahmanda is created is what is being discussed in the next verses. So we will touch base on all that in next week. So on that note, I will close today's session. Krishna Pranamastu. And if we have any questions, we'll take it up now. Hare Krishna. And I like that.
Madhuji, can I ask a question about Linga Sharira?
Yes, please go for it, Shilaji.
Is it what you said that Linga Sharira means, is it the seed form which comes with these gunas and it?
So I think the view there, Shilaji, is, and again, these are all certain views of, various schools of Vedantas have different views on this. So one particular school of Vedanta believes that jivas are eternal and Paramatma is also eternal. But the jivas, they are eternally covered by a material covering called the Linga Sharira. Okay? And so that Linga Sharira, as I told you, is Vijnanamaya Kosha and Anandamaya Kosha together. You could consider as Linga Sharira, which is material. And as you said, it is made up of the three gunas of matter, but that has always been there eternally. Okay? The gross matter that comes is this: what happens once the Brahmanda is created. Once the Brahmanda is created, then these Panchabhutas, the grosser forms of matter, then cling on to these jivas. And then the jivas then acquire a gross body and they go through samsara. Whereas the Linga Sharira is always there eternally. Okay? And that it is only when they do spiritual progression that Linga Sharira goes away. So Linga Sharira is very material. In fact, the primordial ignorance that is discussed, Jiva Ajnanavada, Jiva Swabhava Ajnanavada, that is why jivas are in samsara, is because of this anadi avidya that they have. That is because of the Linga Sharira that has been there in them all the time. So that is how you read it. I hope that answers your question, but I'm not sure.
Yeah. Because I knew crossing the Viraja Nadis, like you said, we have to learn, so much of knowledge we have to get and grow. We should become the knowledge itself. Then the Swabhava may be burned, but Swabhava will still be there. Seed may be roasted or whatever it is.
So our Linga Sharira, our aim should be that we have to get rid of our Linga Sharira, and that is only possible with Paramatma's grace, because unless the karmas are taken away, we will still be acquiring gross bodies. So that's the first step. Remove the karma.
Karmas, unless the kamas are removed, karmas will be there, isn't it? Karma is removed.
Yeah. So that is the step. So long way to go, but at least we are making a journey of 1,000 miles start with one step. So probably we have taken one step. So we got another 999 to go.
Thank you.
Devalji?
Yeah, my question is slightly different. So it's related to the original question I asked. I think if the contemplation for us ordinary jivas is in the fire, what does it doesn't have to be, but can you cover then what is the definition of a rishi and what is the definition of a devta? Because when you did Purusha Shukta, you said that the devtas don't age and they are not like born and they don't die. So I'm just sort of like reminded of that lecture. So just a question there.
Sure. Yes. Okay. So I think this is again, Devalji, I just need to put a qualified statement here. These are all certain views of Vedantic schools, and there are differences of opinion among different Vedantic schools. So I'm just giving you one particular view of Vedantic schools which accepts that souls are different. Yeah, so the first thing we have to accept is that there is something called souls. There itself, there is a problem. Okay. So if we accept that there are souls, then the next question happens: are all souls the same or all souls different? Okay. So that is also a big question of philosophy. Do we accept all souls are the same or they are different? So certain schools of Vedanta says, look at the practical experience of life. Nobody is the same. We may all, go for EDI kind of issues, but that is only to some extent. But inherently, philosophy is a bitter pill, as our teachers tell us. It's a bitter pill, but there are fundamental truths. The fundamental truths are souls are there, they're infinite, but each soul is different from another one. How are they different? They are different with regards to their capacities of knowledge and their capacities with regards to how they can appreciate or know this Brahman. There are huge differences there. So that is the second point. You may agree or you may disagree, but that is one particular view. So then if you understand that the souls are different, they have different capacities for knowledge. So if you want to understand this in all its glories, I would recommend a text called Tattva Sankhya. Okay? Tattva Sankhya of Acharya, where it will give you all the various types of souls, what are their capacities of knowledge and so on. Okay? So in that, then you have the souls that are eligible, the souls that are, okay, then we understand there are different souls. Okay, then there is a gross classification. There are souls that are stuck in samsara. That possibly is many of us. We'll be going round and round in samsaras. And then there are certain souls that are damned for, they're eternally damned. In that view, very similar to the Catholic philosophy. Eternal damnation of souls. There are certain souls who are deemed for that. There are certain souls that are stuck in samsara. And then there are certain souls called Mukti Yogyas, suitable for liberation. So in that Mukti Yogyas, those that are suitable for liberation, then there are certain differences. Not all, there are differences with regards to how they contemplate and go to moksha. Yes, they can go to moksha, but there are different ways of contemplation based on the capacity of souls. There is a tripartite classification of Manishyottamas, Rishis and Devatas. Okay, so that Manishyottamas possibly could be some of us in this audience, the highest of human souls who have the sadhana sharira and they're able to make progress. So they will, that contemplation of fire, yeah, you may contemplate using a stone or a wood or whatever, that is fine. You can contemplate that. Nobody says don't do that. But the Veda says that the highest form of such contemplation is the fire. It just gives a recommendation, but it is up to us based on our own yogyata that we use different symbols to contemplate. Okay, the rishis, for example, they contemplate on the Surya, Dhyau, the ones that are out there. Okay, and then the devatas, this is antariksha. So this gets a little complicated. So the devatas can view this Paramatma as an all-pervasive being in their contemplation. You and me, I don't think we can. People can say God is unlimited, he doesn't have a shape, so I will worship somebody who's unlimited and who's got no form. Do it, no problem. If you have the capacity to do it, do it. But actually, it's impossible for souls. We need some kind of a symbol to do this. But we should be very careful and appreciate that the symbol itself is not the Paramatma, that there is an underlying principle that pervades that symbol. That is what I see in this Agni. And when I look at Agni and I'm reminded of this Prakasha Swarupaha, he is pure and all that, I can be reminded of the qualities of Paramatma, but that fire is not the Paramatma, that there is this some sentient principle that is inside this fire. That is what I am contemplating. So this is exclusively for Manishyottamas or souls of certain souls, whether you like it or not. Souls are the lowest category that are eligible for moksha, who can worship Paramatma in a limited form in fire and other symbols. Okay, so I would suggest that you Google it out, Tattva Sankhya, that talks about this in great detail. Thank you, Deva.
Yeah, thanks.
Right. So if there are no further questions, can I request Harish to take us through Om and then we'll close today's session, please. Hare Krishna. Thank you, everyone. So we'll catch up next week for Aksharat Paratah Paraha and then go for the sequence of creation. So these are beautiful verses. Please join me next Sunday. Hare Krishna. Take care.
Namaskara.